Hello everyone and welcome back. Tone here, and I am ready for another Dominion Daily today. And I wanted to start off with something a little different today, and I want to talk about some Dominion vocabulary. So I figure we can cover some vocabulary here, and that way we can speak in more direct terms when we're talking about the game. We can, instead of me like repeating like a definition every time I'm talking about a certain concept, we can have simpler, direct terms to speak of them, which will facilitate us all learning the game together. It'll make communication easier. It takes these concepts and puts them into simpler packages so that we're able to process them and talk about them easier. I think there's going to be a lot of benefits to this. So right now I'm looking on a page on the Dominion Wiki called the Glossary. So this has like a bunch of terms in it. By the way, the Dominion Wiki is a fantastic game wiki, one of the best I've seen, up there with NetHack. So if you are curious about this game, definitely check this page out. Something that I was doing a while ago when I was learning the game is like, if I just look up any card, I feel like there's just a bunch of like nice information about it. Like here's Moat, which is a pretty simple card. Tells you what it does, but then like there's a strategy section here, the terminal card, like it makes all these comparisons. Like you can just learn a lot just by looking at one card and then going through it and then thinking about it, and that'll make you like a better player. So that's really cool. But we're not doing that today. We're just going to go through some terms. So I have this glossary page up and I haven't looked through this yet. I'm just going to kind of skim through and we'll look at some things. So attack immunity for attack cards, like what Moat grants, that's not anything too new. Auto pile, to empty a pile by playing cards from that pile. That's not something common enough that we want to go over. Base is something I use a lot. I think you all know what that is. So when I refer to base, that's just the base Dominion set of cards with no expansions. Big money. This is a big one. No pun intended. But seriously, this is a big one. Big money is an archetypical deck structure in which the player mostly buys treasure cards, usually along with a small number of action cards. It is usually contrasted with an engine, and whether to go for an engine-like or big money-like strategy is an important strategic choice on many Dominion boards. So big money basically means you buy a bunch of gold and then a few cards that complement them, but you're mostly buying your victory cards, your provinces, through gold and treasure instead of getting coin through action cards. And there has been like a lot of analysis on this, and that's what it says here. There has been a lot of analysis on big money strategy, in part because big money is easier to model and simulate than more complex decks. A pure big money strategy, i.e. a strategy which involves only buying basic cards, is almost never optimal. Basic cards here meaning provinces and money, not the kingdom cards. So these basic cards. So they're saying don't just buy treasure and provinces and nothing else. You'll want some action cards to facilitate that. However, since it is available in every game of Dominion, it can make a useful baseline for comparing other strategies against. So that's one of the big things with big money, I think, is because it's so common and it's been studied because it's easier to model, like they're talking about. It makes a really good comparison because, you know, on any board you can play big money with the basic cards, but you're usually going to be looking for cards that give you like more draw or something along with that. So playing big money on a board kind of gives you like a good baseline of like how many turns it'll take to win, and then you can say, can I make an engine that is more efficient than that? And an engine here is an archetypical deck structure which aims to buy many action cards and chain them together each turn. It is often contrasted with a big money strategy which seeks to buy mostly treasures and only a few supporting actions. To build an engine, you generally need a village, terminal draw, and a sort of payload. So we're already getting to other vocabulary here, which we'll have to just get back to later, which can include cards to help you get more cards, either a gainer or a card offering plus buy, as well as trashers and attack cards. Look at all these components. These are, and I didn't read this before, these are all the things I usually look at when I first look at a kingdom. I look for villages, and this refers to cards that give you plus actions. Terminal draw. Action cards that increase the number of draw cards but are terminal, which means they don't give you an action back. So basically draw cards. Payload. These are cards that give you coin. When there's no plus buys, we're often looking at gainers and plus buys. Trashers, attack cards. Like, these are like all the components we want to look at when we're looking at a kingdom and deciding what strategy we're going to go with. This is actually a really succinct sentence that says so much about the game. It says you can also build an engine from only buying non-terminal actions. These include Hunting Party and Minion. Okay, so we've played engine a lot. I just think they're more fun, so I tend to like lean towards them, even maybe if they're not the best. But they tend to be better if you have the right cards for them. And we've played some big money, so you can, like, during all these Dominion dailies we've done, you can see all of these that we've played through before. We may as well look at all these other definitions here while we're up front, because these are going to be some of the big ones. So a village is an informal generic name for the family of cards which offer the ability to play more than one terminal action in a turn. And there's so many like nested definitions here. We might be jumping around a bit. I didn't foresee this, but this is what we're gonna have to do. Terminal action is an action card that does not give plus action when played. So this is terminal because if you only have the one action you start your turn with, you play this, it's the only action you can play. It ends your action phase onto the buy phase. So that's what a terminal action card is. Collision here is another big one. We might come back to this page. I just wanted to get that out. So a village is for the family of cards which offer the ability to play more than one terminal action in a turn. So called because many of them have village in their names. So we're all familiar with village from the base set. Plus one card, plus two actions. So this is what enables us to play multiple cards that don't refund their action. Terminal actions. So the simplest village card is village itself. Typically, these cards will offer plus two actions, but there are some village cards which give this effect in other ways. The presence of villages in a given kingdom is important because having a cap on the number of terminal actions that can be played in a turn is a significant limiting factor in the potential of decks that can be built. Kingdoms and villages and kingdoms without villages play very differently. Without the presence of villages in a kingdom, the focus on most decks shifts to non-terminals plus most desirable terminal available. So non-terminal will be cards which do refund the action. Also an action on seller. Okay. Now, this is a term that I might not use because I feel like if someone... This is a really weird term to someone who's not familiar with this, and I'm not going to expect everyone who tunes into a Dominion Daily to know what I'm talking about when I mean village. I'll probably start using this sometimes, but I'll probably refer to these as some kind of like, you know, plus actions card. So that's what a village is. Terminal draw. Action cards that increase the number of cards in your hand but are terminal. Can be a core component of engines when supplied with sufficient villages because they can enable you to draw most or all of your deck each turn as a form of deck control. So, Smithy here. We've probably played games where we've picked up a bunch of villages and smithies, and then that just gives you a ton of card draw. It's a little inconsistent because you can end up with no villages and a bunch of smithies and like gold, and then all you end up being able to do is play one smithy your turn. But it generally works pretty well. Because you usually draw at least one village and one smithy in your opening hand, and then you can just spiral from there. Let's see, what else does this say? If a kingdom is missing important components for an engine, certain terminal draw cards are good enablers of a money-based strategy. In both cases, terminal draw aids deck cycling, helping new buys get shuffled into the deck sooner. Now that is an interesting concept. Helping new buys get shuffled into the deck sooner. So if you have a big deck and you don't draw through it very quickly, when you buy a new card, it goes in your discard pile, and you don't actually get to see that until you reshuffle your deck, which means you have to play through and draw through all of the cards that are in your draw pile. That's an interesting concept that we don't really talk about too much, I feel. And so cycling is going through your deck to get closer to the next reshuffle, either by drawing or discarding cards from the deck. So cycling is just drawing through your deck, is how I usually refer to that. But yeah, that's a good concept that I don't think we talk about that much. Payload. Payload is any card that functions as the purpose of a deck. That's a weird definition, isn't it? Any card that functions as the purpose of a deck? That feels so abstract to me. Let's see what else it says down here. An engine needs 3 parts, plus action, normally through villages, draw, and payload. The action... Oh, you know why this is so vague? You would normally think of payload in terms of cards that give you plus coin. So like when we get like a bunch of festivals or vassals, and we get all of our money through those. But this can also be cards that gain cards for you. So sometimes you can just gain victory cards without actually spending coin on them through gaining cards. I think that's why this is so kind of like vague in the way they put it. But yeah, so an engine needs 3 parts: action, draw, and payload. The plus action is necessary to play everything, and the draw is necessary to get everything you want to play into your hand. The payload is the reason you built the engine in the first place. A deck that has only plus action and draw will usually be outpaced by big money. The most common payload is plus buy. Simply adding the ability to buy more than 1 card per turn can make a Village Smithy deck viable. Equally useful are Terminal Silvers. So this is a card like Militia. Here they have Monument, so these just give you plus 2 coin, and they have their own term because they're so common, I guess. So this is a card that just gives you plus 2 coin. Vassal is one of those. Festival is one of those. So these are Terminal Silvers, and that's what we use a lot in the decks that I've played as our payload, which give you buying power to make use of extra buys, and Trashers, which trim your deck down and make your engine run more smoothly. Other payload categories are Gainers, Cost Reducers, Attacks, and Treasures. Also function as payload. So when I think of payload, I've heard that before, and I thought it just meant treasures and like these Terminal Silvers. I never really considered like attack cards and trashers and stuff, but I guess that makes sense. Payload is what you're trying to deliver with your deck. So that makes sense. Interesting. That's a new one for me. Hang on, did I miss something here? Some villages and draw cards have additional abilities that can function as payload. Outside of that, most payload cards are stop cards. And we should look at stop card now, because that came up twice as well. A stop card is any card that does not draw more cards. The term is typically used in the context of engines, such strategies usually aim to draw all or most of the deck each turn once the engine is running. So adding too many cards that don't draw, even the powerful payload cards that you do not want in your deck, or that you do want in your deck, and such as valuable treasures or strong non-drawing terminal actions, can get in the way of the engine's functioning. Okay, you know, I feel like we just like scraped the surface of the vocabulary in this game, but I think we should stop here for now and jump into a real game, because that was a lot. And we just hit on a lot of really important concepts. So let's just do a quick review here. So we talked about big money is getting a bunch of treasure from like gold, silver, copper, and making that like the core strategy of your deck to pick up victory cards. And we have engines, which work through action cards. In particular, they work through villages, which give you plus actions, draw cards. I don't know why this specifically says terminal draw, because I think something like lab, which gives you plus 1 action plus 1 action and plus 2 draw works just as well. So draw and then payload. And when I'm thinking about payload, I'm mostly thinking about cards that get us like money to buy more things with. We should talk real quick. Gainer. So these just gain a card without purchasing them in your buy phase. We're pretty familiar with those. Artisan is a good example. We know Trashers really well. So we talked about non-terminal actions. So non-terminal means they refund the action. Terminal means they do not. And then there's also stop cards, which don't give you any plus draw on them. So they don't refund their draw. And then another one that I wanted to look at, I think we should do, is Cantrip. Cantrip is the common colloquial term for any Dominion action card which offers plus 1 action and plus 1 card. So we see these a lot. And every time I talk about one of these, I'm like, so this card, it refunds the draw and the action that it consumes, basically, that it costs to play in your deck. So Cantrip is a nice term for us to refer to those with. It's essentially self-replacing, not taking up space in your hand or taking up an action. and will usually offer some side benefit, such as the top decking effect Harbinger offers or the additional favor of the underling. In the narrowest definition, a cantrip offers exactly +1 card and +1 action, and no extra amount of card actions or coin. In a broader sense, the term cantrips encompasses all of these cards that fall into another category. So this is saying like a village is technically a cantrip, but we're going to use that just to talk about cards that do this. Okay, I think that's good enough for now. That was a lot, so we're going to have to dip back in. If there's any like topics or like vocabulary you guys in particular are curious about, I think it would be fun to, do a more directed, deep dive into some of this stuff. Like we could look up engines or like specific cards. Like there's so much we can do with these Dominion dailies. Let's jump into a regular Dominion game now. And maybe we'll even use some of our vocabulary that we just learned. By the way, if you guys want to support the channel here and all the other related projects I do, you can do that over at patreon.com/Tonehack, so feel free to check that out if you would like. So, let's see what we have here. Sea chart. This is a cantrip. Reveal the top card of your deck. If you have a copy of it in play, put it into your hand. So I could see this being a strong card in some engines. It's also cheap. It's actually the only 3-cost card on this board, so we might buy that. Treasure map. Trash this and a treasure map from your hand. If you trash 2 treasure maps, gain 4 golds onto your deck. So if you get 2 of these in your hand, you can basically get 4 gold. Wow, this is an expensive board. Look at all these 5-cost cards. Barbarian, +2. Hey, a terminal silver. Each other player trashes the top card of their deck. If it costs 3 or more, they gain a cheaper card sharing the type with it. Otherwise, they gain a curse. I played a deck with a lot of barbarians and it's pretty strong. And here, I don't want to keep this guy waiting, so let's look here. Junk Dealer is a trasher. We have Laboratory, Library, we're familiar with those. Old Witch is good draw and does curses. We want to get to 5 really fast here. And the fastest way we can do that is buying 2 silver, I think. Okay, it's their turn. Let's go to Cartographer here. It's a cantrip. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck, discard any number of them, and then put the rest back in any order. So that's a nice deck control card. Let's grab another silver. Hunting Party. Another cantrip. Reveal your hand. Reveals cards from your deck until you reveal one that isn't a copy of one in your hand. Put it into your hand and discard the rest. Wow, that's a lot of money. You could buy a gold right away. I think we want Junk Dealer though. So +1 card, +1 action. It's a cantrip that also gives us + coin and lets us trash a card from our deck. I think I want 2 of those. So we can start thinning down our deck here. Do we look at... Yeah, we looked at Hunting Party. We just looked at that. We know what Laboratory does. We know what Library does. Draw until you have 7 cards in hand, skipping any action cards you choose. Set those aside, discarding them afterwards. So what is this? Magnate. Reveal your hand, +1 card per treasure in it. That is interesting. Oh, it's my turn again. What is our strategy here? I don't see anything with a lot of plus money on it. I don't see any villages. So, wow, so we gotta be careful. I'm gonna get a Barbarian. That's gonna be our only terminal action in our deck, pretty much. It doesn't like when I come back from that. From the Kingdom screen for some reason. Okay, we have 5 again. Go Barbarian. What's our opponent been doing here? They grabbed a treasure map and a silver. A laboratory. And then they had a dud turn. That was another definition, was dud. Sometimes I call that bricking out, which I think I heard from Luxadream. I don't know if that's more broadly used or not. I think treasure map is probably a good way to get some gold into our deck. Probably easier than buying 4 gold. You have to draw 2 of them. Is it too early to do that? You know, on a turn like this, where we have 4, I'd rather buy this than a silver, I think. I don't think buying these when I have 5 is going to ever be that valuable. Because there's no plus buy on this board either. Six. So the library is not going to be that good in this board, I think, because I think we're going to have a lot of like treasure, and we're going to have gold and stuff in our deck. I got a barbarian already. I think we want a laboratory. Get some draw going on. Laboratory is one of the best cards on this board, actually. I have a feeling we could burn through this pretty quickly. I'm right-clicking here, because bringing up a card seems to fix that black card visual. Yeah, I think this laboratory pile is going to go pretty fast. Fashion Estate here, play Barbarian. So Barbarian does, again, it's a terminal silver, so we get +2 coin. And each other player trashes the top card of their deck. If it costs 3 or more, they gain a cheaper card sharing a type with it. Otherwise, they gain a curse. So we just trashed their silver. The only cheaper treasure is copper, so they were forced to take a copper, which is really, really strong effect there for us. Grab another lab. We got that barbarian again. They got their second treasure map. I don't think they have great odds of drawing both of them in their hand. I mean, they can luck out and have it in their hand right now, but they haven't trashed down at all, and they only have 2 laboratories. And they bought a bunch of like non-cantrips, so it's not like they have like my junk dealers, which aren't really taking up draw on my deck. Okay, and since this trashed their copper, they gain a curse. What does Magnate do again? +1 card per treasure in it. Grab another laboratory. Hit another dead turn. What do we have here? 4/7 to spend. I think I want to grab that second treasure map here soon. I was waiting until we get a bad turn, but we've been consistently getting 5+. They're getting a third treasure map. I don't like that, because I don't think they want 8 gold in their deck. And if they only play these once, then they're going to have like an extra one. I know it increases their chances that they're going to get it, but then they have a bad card in their deck. That's an interesting play there, I think. So we trashed an estate and gave them a curse. I'm going to keep grabbing those laboratories. They got their province already. I don't think they're going to be able to hit that very often, though. I'm not concerned yet. Even on a board without plus buy, so we can get like multiple provinces in a turn or anything. I'm not concerned yet. We're going to have much better deck control than them. Gosh, 2 more coppers, so I only have 2 coppers left in my deck. I think it's time to buy that treasure map. Are there no gainers on this board? No plus buy, no gainers. I'm gonna call those buyers. Buyers and gainers, I like that. Grab another laboratory. In 2 more turns, we'll be able to trash all the copper and silver out of our deck, and then we can just have 4 gold. I think we only want 3 gold in our deck. We're just gonna buy a province every turn. So they just hit their treasure map. So we're drawing through our whole deck. I'm trashing stuff. I'm messing up their deck with barbarians, so I just trashed their state and gave them a curse. It's time for treasure map. I could have bought a province that turn, but I'm not ready. They have a 2 province lead on us right now. Although they only have 9 victory points because of those curses. And I am not concerned in the slightest, because I think we have much better deck control here than they do. I am going to trash both of these silver. I'm going to play treasure map. Gives us 4 gold. Now that means this next turn is going to be awkward because we're going to draw all of that gold. They cut 3 provinces on us. Maybe I should be concerned. Okay, I don't want to play junk dealer because I like all the cards in my deck. I could have drawn a... I'll trash one of the junk dealers, I think. It's time for us to start buying provinces. I was gonna say, if they get to 8 again... Trash a junk dealer. Play barbarian. We trash one of their labs. Now they get to gain a cheaper card. Which actually sucks on this board because there's no really good 4 and 3 cards. It took another treasure map? Highly questionable in my opinion. This card does nothing, and I don't think they... Well, their deck isn't trash, so I guess they probably do want more gold in it, so they have a higher chance of drawing 8. They're playing pure big money over here. To use some more of the vocabulary we learned earlier. We can buy a province already. Took out another one of their estates. Okay. We have more victory points than them now. They only had enough that turn to buy a duchy. Didn't manage to draw through my deck this time. That's fine. I think there's just 2 whatchamacallits here. Labs. A lab and a province, it looked like. With 4 labs, I think we can get that last province this turn. Yep, it's right there. Alright. That was a clean victory. So that was basically big money versus engine right there. And you saw how quickly they got to buying provinces, and they actually got like a decent edge on us. They were up 2 provinces. I think they bought a third that same turn, but then they started having a bunch of dud turns because they didn't have... Wow, we ended up getting a lot of curses too. They had all these coppers in their deck. Copper, they started adding victory cards to their deck. They had these treasure maps, which was very unlikely in their deck that they were going to get these. They definitely should have bought that other card that was a cantrip. C map or whatever it was, the 3-cost card instead of this one. When my barbarian forced them to gain something. That was a really clean victory. And yeah, I think that actually kind of demonstrated some of the stuff we talked about earlier with like an engine and big money, because that's kind of what they played. All right, well, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed some of that vocabulary earlier. I hope you enjoyed this run. This was a really fun one. This is one of the cleaner decks I've played. Once we started buying provinces, we got one every single turn and basically drew through our entire deck every turn. So very clean engine here. But yeah, if you guys want any other vocabulary topics or like any kind of strategy ones or like cards, I'm very down to look at more stuff like that at the beginning of these videos as well. So let me know what you guys want, and we will cater the Dominion Daily to that. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.